Okay, everybody. Once again, my name is Linda Abraham. I'm the founder and president of Accepted. I'm going to be presenting Get Accepted to Columbia Business School this evening. I also, just to give you a little bit of background about myself, I've been an MBA admissions consultant for over 20 years. I also am the co-founder and was the first president of the Association of International Graduate Admissions Consultants. I co-authored the book MBA Admissions for Smarties, which you'll have a chance to win later on in the webinar. And I have been quoted by news outlets like the Wall Street Journal, U.S. News and World Report, Poets and Quants, Business Week, and others. So I've been around for a little bit, and I'd like to share whatever I know with you this evening. I also would like to get a couple of housekeeping items here. First off, we've prepared a worksheet that I think will allow you to get more out of the webinar. So if you have not already printed it out for your use, we do have it in the handout section of your control panel, and you can print it out if you're so inclined. And then the other thing I want to mention is we're going to have a couple of polls. We also might have some hand raising. If we do have hand raising, it means you click on the hand on your control panel. Raising your hand in front of the monitor won't do any good. If we ask you to respond to polls, which I'll do in just a second, then that will mean that you need to click on an option on the screen. So first off, again, thank you for coming. And secondly, I'd like to learn a little bit about you. Where are you located geographically? City and state if in the United States, city and country if outside the United States. Anybody want to share where they're located? I assume that Montreal, Canada, Chicago, Illinois, Connecticut, Honolulu, Hawaii, Florida, USA. Whoa, I'm impressed. You still have power. Okay, New York, New York. Stay safe there in Florida. Anybody else? New Jersey? Anybody in Los Angeles, which is where I am? Nobody apparently. Anybody in California? West Coast, anybody? Not yet. Okay, we'll see. Maybe that, again, there might be a little latency in the system, but I'm going to move on. Now that I know where some of you at least are located geographically, I'd also like to know where you're located in the application process. Columbia, regular decision to Columbia, planning to apply. All right, we have a strong winner here. One of these options are in the lead, but I think we can get it up. Again, the options are planning to apply early decision, planning to apply regular decision, planning to apply next year or later, and trying to decide whether to apply to CBS at all. So can we get it up? We're at 66% having voted. Can we get it up a little higher? Over 75%, maybe even 80%. That's what the morning did. Can we get it up there? I guess some of you are still coming in. All right, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. With 73% having voted, here's the results. 31% are planning to apply early decision, 48% are planning to apply regular decision, 21% are planning to apply next year, and 3% are trying to figure out whether they're going to apply to CBS at all. That's pretty close to this morning's. The early decision group is a little bit bigger. It was 28 this morning, and next year was 21. So basically, it came out of the regular decision and last year group, the increase. Okay, let's put that away. I'm going to unshare that. Now we'll be giving away free copies of MBA Admissions for Smarties at the end of the webinar, so pay attention and you can have a chance to win. I've also been told sometimes attendees at webinars are so anxious to learn about the special offer at the end, not the contest prizes, but the special offer, that they don't listen to the webinar because they're so ridden with anxiety. Now, I don't want that to happen to any of you. So I'm going to tell you right now that we have a great $250 off special for any MBA application, and I'll go into more detail on that at the end. The coupon code is SAVE250. Again, it's off any of our comprehensive MBA application packages. Details, URL, expiration date, etc. will come at the end. I hope you feel better now. All right. Columbia prides itself at being at the very center of business. It's located a short subway ride away from Midtown Manhattan, Fifth Avenue, Madison Avenue, and of course, Wall Street. New York City is a leading business center, if not the leading business center internationally for finance, entrepreneurship, fashion, and luxury goods, media and entertainment, advertising, healthcare, myriad industries. With employment strengths in consulting and finance, special programs in value investing and retail, ties to Madison Avenue and the entrepreneurial beehive that is New York City and Columbia University, it's not surprising that Columbia is hard to get into, actually increasingly difficult to get into. You have to have, one of the things you need to do is to have competitive statistics. And you can see that the average GMAT is a 724 for the entering class of this year, the class of 2019. That's up 7 points from the 717 of last year's class. And the middle range also edged up a little bit, not a lot, but a little bit. Now, I visited Columbia many times and spoken with the admissions staff there. But 3 years ago, I was there as part of the AGEC conference, and we listened then to several dynamic presentations on entrepreneurship and leadership at Columbia. We met with recent grads and representatives of the Career Management Center. I've also interviewed the CBS admissions team for Accepted's podcast a couple of times. And by the way, any URLs that I post will be sending out to you in an email right after the webinar, so watch out for it. And you don't have to be madly writing down the URLs. And I had a few takeaways from these interactions. One, Columbia wants to admit people who will be genuinely excited about being in New York City and being part of the energized city that never sleeps. They want people who can not only handle and put up with New York, but who will also thrive and take advantage of the opportunities that New York offers. They want people who want to build on the Columbia Business School heritage and be a proud part of the CBS community and not be distracted by New York. They want people who will be taught by cutting-edge researchers while at the same time engaging with leading practitioners like Warren Buffett, who is a CBS grad. People who will know how to take advantage of what Columbia Business School provides. Now, the plan for the rest of the webinar is to go through my 4-part framework for applying successfully to any top MBA program and apply that framework to the Columbia Business School application this year. You can use a strategy framework on other top programs. That's definitely possible. But the focus of this webinar and the tactics are all going to be geared to Columbia's 2017-2018 application. I'm also going to issue a few warnings and caveats along the way. And the first one comes now. You're not going to get in by waving a magic wand. You're not going to get in with a dab of makeup. You need to submit a meaty, substantive application. And in my mind, substance means competitive qualifications and an effective presentation of those qualifications. It's both. It's the substance and the presentation. And all that effectively and comprehensively and holistically means that you're going to show you belong at Columbia. Now, I'd like you in the question window, which I'm going to use for your answers as well as your questions, to give me an idea of how you intend to show you belong at Columbia. Through essays and speaking with admissions? Okay, Lori. But what are you going to try and convey to them through your essays and speaking with admissions? Anybody else want to say how they intend to show they belong at Columbia? You must have given some thought to it. Passion, goal-oriented, fun, good. Be authentic, very good, Jeffrey. Resume reflecting the standards, I assume that's what you're saying there, through clubs, it's part of it. Showing leadership and collaboration, very good, Shannon, that's important, it's part of it. Highlight moments I thrived, moments when I was surrounded by opportunity and chaos, that can definitely be part of it. Have a top GMAT score, that certainly is not going to hurt anything, but it's not enough. Good recommendations, that's part of it. Realistic goals after the MBA, that's part of it. Show you belong there, well, we're trying to discuss how do you show you belong there. Good recommendations, definitely part of it. Portray Columbia as the right school for your specific career goals. Excellent, Christopher. That's certainly part of it. Show what Columbia can do for your career and what your experience can bring to the school. Excellent, Elizabeth. That's more of it. That's very good. Show that you've talked to alumni and want to pursue similar paths. Good, good. Grit, drive, and female leadership. Anna, that's definitely can be part of it. A genuine, nice person. That's sure true. Nobody wants to admit a jerk. Point out specific courses and seminars Columbia offers that will help you succeed at the program and after in the job market. Very good, Sarah. Okay, you've all hit on part of it. What I'm going to present today is a holistic, comprehensive approach. I'm going to present this 4-part framework, and the big, big, big thing I want you to take away is that all 4 parts of the framework are needed. 2 out of 3, 3 out of 4, 2 out of 4, 3 out of 4 won't do it. It really is a holistic, comprehensive approach. And that's one of the reasons, by the way, that the special today is the package, because that also provides a holistic, comprehensive approach. Now, Columbia itself says that Columbia Business School looks for intellectually driven people from diverse educational, economic, social, cultural, and geographic backgrounds. Our students share a record of achievement, strong leadership, and the ability to work in teams. So, if you analyze that statement a bit, looking for what do they want? Intellectually driven people. They want diversity. They want students who share a record of achievement, strong leadership, and the ability to work in teams. Intellectually driven, record of achievement, strong leadership, and the ability to work in teams, and then something distinctive that will add the diversity of the class. Now, let's go through keeping that statement in mind. I think you'll see that this framework will allow you to show all 4 elements, everything that they're looking for. That the 4-part framework will allow you to show all that they're looking for here. Number 1, demonstrate that you can do the work and excel. You need to show the intellectual drive, the curiosity, ability to succeed in demanding curriculum. That's the first requirement per Columbia Business School. The easiest way to show that is through your undergraduate transcript and test score. And ideally, you want to be at or above the averages for accepted students for both grades and test scores. If not, how can you convince Columbia to accept you with below average? Let's start out with grades. Now, realize that the average GPA for entering students at Columbia is a 3.5, and the middle 80% GPA is 3.2 to 3.8. And there are some students who got in below a 3.2, but obviously very few. The farther away you are below the average, and if both your grades and test scores are below average, the less likely it is that you can effectively demonstrate you can do the work. And therefore, you're not going to be perceived as having the intellectual drive that Columbia wants. If you need to demonstrate that drive now because you didn't do it as an undergraduate, you may want to consider taking business-related courses and earning A's in them if you have a problematic GPA or lack quant classes. You may also want to consider the CFA if it's relevant to your career goals. If your quant skills are weak, you're the proverbial poet, but your grades are good, consider something like MBAmath.com or quant courses at a local college, for example, Statistics for Business, Calculus, if you have and remember the prerequisites, Economics 1, Accounting 1, any of those courses or A's in any of those courses would show the admissions committee that at least now you know how to apply yourself and you can do well in the preparatory courses for a graduate business program. A high test score can also mitigate low GPA. For the top 10, including Columbia, you want to ideally be at the 80th percentile in both quant and verbal with your grades or good or below average. Now again, that I said that 80% in each was an ideal. It's not a line in the sand. It's not a requirement. It's not a ceiling. It's not a floor. It is an ideal. If you're not sure whether you need to retake the GMAT or not, we have a couple of resources that can help you. We have a short video that's a part of a blog post. That's the first one. The second one is a webinar where I discussed whether it pays to retake the GMAT or not. I'm not going to go into other things that you can do with a low GMAT, low academic stats. I would recommend that you see our low stats webinar if you have those concerns. But somehow, some way, you need to show that intellectual drive that is foundational for a successful Columbia Business School application. You must demonstrate that you can do the work effectively and not struggle with either basic math or communications. Okay, so that's part one of the framework. Part two, have a clear, realistic idea why you want an MBA from Columbia and how it will help you realize your dreams. Now, why do you think, and I'm asking you, I'd like you to answer in the question window, why do you think this is important to Columbia? I mean, let's face it, if you pay your tuition and you attend class, why should they care about what you want to do afterwards? But you'll see in a minute that they actually care a lot. In the question window, why do you think they care about what you want to do after your MBA? Strong alumni network and reputation. How does that play into that? Align with Columbia's values. I would say align with Columbia's strengths, recruiting strengths. They want to have a good alumni network for new students. True. That's all true. They want to have a good alumni network. They want to have happy alumni. They want to know that you're employable. Somebody mentioned employability. Exactly. They want to know that they can help you achieve what you want to achieve. So if you have a goal, to choose a rather absurd example, if you were to say you wanted to attend Columbia Business School to get your MD, your medical doctorate degree, that's not going to, they can't help you do that. So that would not be an appropriate goal. And they want to maintain a good relationship with companies that hire from Columbia. That's part of it, Maria, but more importantly, they want to have a good relationship with their students and alumni because they're helping them achieve what they want to achieve. So the first reason this is important is because Columbia asks a lot about it, in addition to what we've just been discussing. So they have the short answer question, what is your immediate post-MBA professional goal? 50 characters maximum. They give you some examples. And if you look at those examples and examine them, they really resemble closely just a very basic definition of a MBA career goal, which is function plus industry. What do you want to do, and in what industry do you want to do it? And the examples, again, work in business development for a media company. So the function is business development, the industry is media. Join a strategy consulting firm. Well, that's not quite as clear as what I laid out, but it's consulting in a strategy consulting firm. Launch a data management startup. Well, you want to launch, an enterprise, that's entrepreneurial ambitions, specific industry, data management. Just a general, I want to start a business is not nearly as compelling. And Columbia also has its essay question, essay 1. Through your resume and recommendations, we have a clear sense of your professional path to date. What are your career goals over the next 3 to 5 years, and what, in your imagination, would be your long-term dream job? And that's one of the 3 required essays. So one of the reasons the goals are important is simply because they're asking about them twice. And then the other reason they're important is, again, because schools want to know, Columbia included, that they can help you succeed. Our book starts with this Yogi Berra quote: if you don't know where you're going, you might wind up someplace else. Columbia Business Schools wants to know that you know where you're going and they can help you wind up there. Admissions should be able to connect the dots between where you've been and what you want to do via Columbia's program, Career Strengths and Extracurricular Opportunities. Now, a couple of years ago, we had a client purchase a rejection review service from us. He applied, had been rejected, and he wanted our opinion as to why. I referred him to Esmeralda Cardinal, who's a former admissions director. She reviewed his application and said she would have rejected him also. So he says, well, why? Because his goals made no sense. And she said, why did you give this, I think he had an entrepreneurial goal. You didn't do anything entrepreneurial your entire career. And he said, well, my friends told him that entrepreneurship is really hot and he should say that's his goal, even though it was related not at all to what he'd done in the past and really had nothing to do with what he wanted to do in the future. But these friends, I'm sure they were very well-meaning, told him that this is the end goal. Needless to say, we advise him to articulate an authentic goal that connected his past to his target schools and his future goals. He is now in an M7 program, or he might have just finished it, but I think he's still in there. Don't do that. Be authentic. Think deeply about how the programs you are applying to are going to help you achieve your real goal, not something you've been told to write. That's part 2. Part 1, again, show you can do the work. Part 2, have a realistic goal that requires a Columbia MBA. Part 3 of the framework. Show that you share Columbia's values and have the character it seeks. Now, Columbia's mantra, which is on the page of every single one of its website pages, is at the very center of business. In addition, there are several elements that Columbia feels are distinctive and very important in its program. Number 1, its location. The advantage of being in New York City and part of Columbia University. So for you as an applicant, what does that mean to you? When you listen, if you listen to the both podcasts, but certainly the first one, this comes through loud and clear. One of the things it means is access. Access to speakers and conferences, to master's classes, to executives and residents, access to opportunities for consulting projects and networking. Have you taken advantage of these kinds of activities? Do you have experience to contribute to these kinds of activities? Because those are the things you're going to want to highlight in your application if you want to show fit with what Columbia values. New York City also is a center for culture. Tremendous music and arts in New York City. It's incredibly multicultural. When have you thrived in a multicultural environment? And then, of course, there is the challenge of New York City's distractions. Are you able to balance a lot of stimulation and opportunities and prioritize? I think that's the point, really, of its second question. So again, you don't have to show fit in all areas that I'm mentioning, but you should certainly show it in some of the ways that you're going to enjoy being at the very center of business. Another thing that, or quality that Columbia values, is putting theory into practice. Columbia has on its faculty Nobel Prize winners, as well as leading business CEOs who are accessible for presentations, for conferences, for meetings with students, coffee. And that's, again, part of being at this point of convergence for thought and practice leaders. And then it has a curriculum that allows you to put theory into practice. And you may also, and you don't have to write this in the question window, but think about it. When have you put theory into practice? When have you taken a lesson you learned in class or an article you read or a podcast you listened to and said, okay, we should try this out? My staff, they start to laugh because I start so many conversations with, I listened to a podcast and they talked about this, or I read this article, maybe we should try it out. What do you think about it? This is putting theory into practice. I guess I should apply. And then there's extracurricular activities that allow you to practice the theory at Columbia. There's the Student Value Investment Fund, the student-run, the Columbia Startup Lab. And these all involve implementing what you're learning in class. Now, I would suggest that you write down for yourself sometimes when you've put theory into practice. You've turned a class concept or idea and applied it to a problem or situation. When have you demonstrated the seed of an entrepreneurial mindset, which we're going to get to in a second? When have you demonstrated multicultural fluency or adaptability? Okay, just take a minute for yourself. Jot that down on the worksheet if you have, or a piece of paper or a computer file, whatever you prefer. And then there's the entrepreneurial mindset. And it's not just, you can see that what Columbia itself says about the entrepreneurial mindset on the screen. It's not just about how many students start a new business, although Columbia Business School students have access to the Lang Entrepreneurial Center, Columbia's Startup Lab, and again, the growing entrepreneurial ecosystem of New York City. It's about equipping Columbia students to assess opportunities, assess risk, and based on that assessment, initiate response to that opportunity regardless of the size of the entity that they happen to be working for. It's a mindset, not just a size of business or a stage of business. And then there's the global aspect of Columbia, which I don't think is as well articulated on the site as some of the other elements I'm talking about, but it is important to Columbia. because New York City is an international business center, and it's an incredibly multicultural city. And as evidence of the importance of international and global mindset to Columbia, realize that 48% of the students that entered in 2016 are international citizens. Columbia offers global immersions, consulting projects, and social enterprise projects. If this is important to you, how will you take advantage of the global opportunities? Where can you demonstrate multicultural fluency? Do you have international work experience, extensive personal travel, a multicultural background or experience? And then the final element is that I would like to emphasize is community. This is another aspect of Columbia's culture, and we're going to discuss it a little bit more in a minute. But Columbia is really proud of its community and wants people who will sustain and contribute to it. And I actually recently got an email from one of Columbia admissions staff, and in it he wrote, in connection specifically with the importance of community to the Columbia Business School admissions office. We really value applicants whose very presence make the experience of others around them better. This could be from a personal or professional perspective. We try our best to avoid applicants who come across as transactional, people who feign interest in someone or something only to get some perceived benefit. So in your application, you're going to want to highlight times when you were a contributor with no ulterior motive. It wasn't just to pad your resume. Perhaps it was something that nobody knew about, and you did it because it was the right thing. Nobody knows about it, but you were involved and you did, and you contributed, and you made a difference. When and how have you contributed to your community? And realize that most of us really are members of multiple communities. We can be a member of a professional community, a religious community, a geographic community, perhaps a political association, an affinity of some kind for a hobby, be it wine tasting or hiking or running or music, any of those things, jazz, whatever it might be. When have you contributed and how? What difference have you made? And speaking of difference, I want you to note the difference between mouthing platitudes, spitting back websites, and really showing that you share the values. The former, the mouthing platitudes, that stuff, the generalities, is just gift wrap, and it really hides what's inside. Spamming them with phrases from their website or mantra-like repetition of at the center of XYZ, that really will not do it. But examples in your essays, bullet points in your resume, examples from your recommenders, responses to interview questions should in total show that you both have what Columbia is looking for and can benefit from what Columbia offers. Again, we're talking about a comprehensive, holistic approach. To me, Columbia wants to see how you will thrive on its campus and in its city, and that you have the grit and discipline to make the most of it all while flourishing in the craziness that is Manhattan. And again, your recommendations and interview responses should also demonstrate these qualities. Now, on a worksheet, I really want you to take away something very concrete from this webinar. On a worksheet, write down 3 to 5 ways in which you can demonstrate that you share Columbia's values. Think about what we've been talking about. The value of being in New York City, convergence, multiculturalism, putting theory into action, an entrepreneurial mindset, community contributor. Where have you demonstrated some of those? You don't have to demonstrate them all, but some of them are really, really important. Another warning, a focus on rankings or brand can obscure this fit aspect of admissions while contributing to you focusing on the wrong things. I'm going to go forward even though I hope you're still writing. And the result will be that you blend in. You want to stand out in a positive way. You want to show that you have a distinctive experience and perspective to contribute. You want to be the gem on the screen, not one of the gray stones. At current application volume, Columbia rejects more than 4 out of every 5 applicants. And that leads to my last strategic point. The fourth part of the framework. You want to demonstrate that you'll be able to contribute to your learning team, your cluster, and the greater Columbia community, and ultimately make the school proud to have accepted you. Now, Columbia wants students who are prepared to have an impact, both at Columbia and beyond. That's really important. Another element that's really important and came through very loud and clear is the concept of shared ownership. In the first of the two podcasts that you'll be getting links to, I invited Amanda Carlson, the Dean of Admissions, to participate. And she insisted, she didn't insist, she really wanted to have her team on the podcast because teamwork and shared ownership is really, really important. And I think, and again, it's not just a matter of you showing it. The school as a whole shows it. They walk the walk. They don't just talk the talk. To show that you belong, you need to reveal a habit of impact and teamwork through your essays, resume, activity history, the entire application. So, do you have a history of successful collaboration? Have you contributed in the past? Where have you made a difference in the question window now? Now I'd like you to wake up and participate a bit here, okay? Where have you contributed in the past? Can you give me examples of when you made a difference? Anybody? Give me an example of when you made a difference. I'll comment on them and give you some tips as to how to make them better. If not, you'll have to, here we go. Laura, you're first again. Increased hire women engineers from SWE conferences by 100%. Excellent. Excellent. Anybody else? That's a very good example because you also quantified the result. This morning, everybody was giving me these examples, but they weren't including the result. Changing affordable housing rules in a redevelopment agency. Very good, William. What was the impact? Did it mean that X percent, X hundreds of people were now able to afford to get into affordable housing? What was the impact of that change? That's very good. But what was the impact? Anybody else want to share? Okay. Okay. Again, how many people were affected? More, increase the supply of affordable housing. Excellent. And I don't mean to pick on you. By how many? By what percentage? By how many? Elizabeth, improve the screening process for professional development courses offered to New York City public school teachers. Very good. What was the impact? Did this increase their compliance with professional development requirements? Did it increase enrollment? Did it increase test scores for students? Here's from Pratik. Did social work in India helped 15 students? Okay, help them do what? Did they stay in school longer? Did they go to high school where they would have normally stopped at elementary school? Did they go to college where they would have normally stopped at high school? Eileen, while president of my student government, worked with my team to change bus times to sync with student schedule. Impact, 1,000 students were able to arrive at school on time. Excellent. Very well done. Which helped them to get a better education. That's good. I'm trying to get you to be more specific, Pratik. Did it mean that they went to high school when they would have normally have stopped at elementary or junior high? Okay, better, good. Improve company's risk management system and save 50% of fraction cost. Okay, good, good. Let's move on. I'm trying to get across here that you need to be specific in your descriptions of what you've done and not just stop with what you did, but also include the impact of what you did. And several of you were being a little bit vague on the impact part. And that also happened this morning. This morning they were all vague on the impact part. Let's move on. So some of you were talking about, what you did on the job, off the job. I want to take a minute just to focus on work experience itself, alone, as a standalone. And there's a quantitative element to work experience, and there's a qualitative element. The quantitative is easy to define. It's on the screen right now. The average amount of work experience at CBS is 5 years. 99% have more than 1 year of work experience. You can take away from this that work experience is really important. They don't want to admit anybody without full-time work experience or very few people. And you have your middle 80% range there. So that's the quantitative part. That's easy. What about qualitative? All right, so they want work experience that's going to show the leadership, teamwork, impact, grit, initiative, and entrepreneurial tendencies that Columbia values. In addition, they're going to want to see above average progression on the job. So that's what you're going to want your resume and your work experience to show, and whatever description. You're not going to provide your work experience in the essays, but certainly in discussing it also in your interview. So that's kind of the overview. But that's the substance of showing that your experience shows the values or is competitive. What about the presentation of that experience? In the exercise a minute ago, I tried to show you that it's also how you present the experience that counts. And again, I'm not talking about spin or makeup or any of that stuff. I'm talking effectively. So let's have a little exercise now. I'm launching a poll, and you should be able to make multiple choices. If that's not right, we'll go to a plan B. Okay, but you can pick more than one option. How many of you, yes, it's working. How many of you work in finance or consulting? How many of you have traveled outside your home country? And how many of you volunteered in college or since? Please, again, respond on the screen. Okay, again, the options are working, and that's work in finance or consulting since college, full-time, after college. Work in finance or consulting, traveled outside your home country, or volunteered in college or since. Okay, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I'm going to close the poll and share the results. All right, so 50% of you work or worked in finance or consulting, 95% have traveled outside your home country, and 95% of you have volunteered in college or since. Now here's another set of questions, and I'd like you again to indicate which ones are you would identify with, okay? The options are, how many of you work or worked full-time since college for a money management firm in an providing IT support? How many of you have consulted for pharmaceutical companies exploring entry to new markets in South America? Oh, I got a lot on that one. I'm surprised. And how many of you have volunteered at a summer camp for special needs young adults? Okay. All right, I'm going to close the poll soon. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. This one we only had 51% voting because most of this doesn't apply to most of you. And here are the results. I'm actually surprised it's as high as it is. This morning it was much lower. 8% of you have worked for a money management firm providing IT support. 16% consulted for a pharma company exploring entry to new markets in South America. And 16% of you have volunteered for a wheelchair-bound, ventilator-dependent teen. I'm wondering if there's a little fudging going on here because that's pretty high on all counts. But here's the main point. What's the difference between the two sets of questions, the two polls? In the question window, please. What's the difference? Specificity, right, in the second set. Yeah, you're all getting it. You're all getting that. The first was vague, the second was specific, exactly. Second are more focused, exactly. And what happens when we describe what you've done in specific terms? In the question window, please. What happens? You become unique. Your profile becomes more unique. You stand out, exactly. You differentiate yourself effortlessly, exactly, Christopher, you got it. You got it, 100%. Do you see how specifics differentiate? Are you an engineer or a transportation engineer? Are you a consultant or a healthcare consultant? Did you volunteer or did you found a new organization to address a specific need in your community? However you define your community. That is so important, just how you present what you've done with specifics. And that was also part of the problem in that little exercise we did a couple of minutes ago when you were talking about where you've had impact. Some of you were being a little bit vague. Be specific. Succinct, but specific. So here is the 4-part framework that will show you belong at Columbia. 1, evidence you can do the work. 2, realistic goal requiring an MBA from Columbia. 3, demonstrate shared values. And 4, an ability to contribute. Now let's look at the specific elements of the Columbia application. I've already touched briefly on grades and transcript, as well as a short answer question. We're going to look at other elements. First, job and activity history and resume. You must make the most of the 1 to 2 page resume to show impact and contribution. Again, succinct, focused, distinctive. Emphasizing results and impact, contribution. For Columbia, it's job history. It's pretty much the facts and nothing but the facts. There's little room to elaborate on motivations, lessons learned, or significant experiences. Now, Columbia asks you to provide up to 3 roles, full-time employment only. If you have run a business or not-for-profit on the side, that would go into your optional essay. Pay close attention to the details in reporting salary and bonuses in this section. If you are abroad, I think most of you are domestic, but if you are abroad and you're converting your salary to dollars, make sure you make note of the source that you're using to convert and the date, and maybe take a screenshot of it, so that if you're ever questioned about this, you can just show them what you were using. The point here, and you have this part about duties and responsibilities. Again, you want to show that you belong to an institution that is proud of its culture of engagement, its culture focused on achievement. So don't just describe your responsibilities. Go beyond that and highlight your achievements while you fulfilled your responsibilities. And the same is really true of the add activity window, where you're supposed to list up to 3 collegiate extracurricular activities and up to 3 post-collegiate extracurricular activities in order of importance. As I've been emphasizing, quantify impact whenever possible, and obviously be succinct. You just don't have a lot of room here. But go beyond just describing your participation to what did you achieve, what was your impact? How did you make this organization or activity better? Let's move on to the essays. Columbia, as you know, has 3 essays. The essays should complement other elements of the application and each other as they answer the question posed and reveal something distinctive and interesting about you. The essays are a great place to show fit and reveal the qualities that Columbia values, as well as perhaps a distinctive perspective or experience that also shows you're a standout. Let's go to question 1. Now, I read for you the preamble to question 1, which I didn't put on the screen, but through your resume and recommendations, we have a clear sense of professional path to date. What are your career goals over the next 3 to 5 years, and what in your imagination would be your long-term dream job? So you've already, again, they see your past. You don't have to go through your past here. They know your short-term goal from the short essay question we discussed earlier. When responding to this question, I would say, get ready, get set, think. What are you trying to achieve? Where would you love to be in 3 to 5 years after you graduate? And then, this will be part of question 2, how will being at Columbia Business School enable you to realize those dreams? That's going to be the next question. But that first sentence, the one that's not on the screen, why do you think that one is there, the one I just read to you? Well, Michael Robinson, Associate Director of MBA Admissions at Columbia Business School, in the podcast with the admissions team, said, quote, we hope to avoid applicants simply restating their professional past. They already have that information. Don't waste your essay real estate on what they already know. This is a future-focused question. How would you like your career to develop beyond your immediate post-MBA job? And yes, they do want to know your dreams, so feel free to dream. You could write this essay chronologically, thematically, or start with that dream job as you see it, and then describe how you see your career developing so that it culminates in that job. 500 words is a little longer than a 5-paragraph essay. You don't have a lot of room. That means you need to throw out anything that doesn't relate to the key points, the main theme of the essay. If it's still too long, focus on just the most important. What it shouldn't be, a copy and paste of a response to another school's question. Essay 2. The full-time MBA experience includes academics, recruiting, and networking. What are your personal priorities, and how do you anticipate allocating your time at Columbia Business School? How are you going to take advantage of all that Columbia Business School offers to achieve your goals and get the most out of your MBA experience? And don't write in terms of academics, recruiting, and networking. Write about the specific clubs, the specific programs, the specific networking opportunities that you intend to take advantage of. How do you intend to turn Columbia into the bridge to your desired future? Now, you could try a fairly straightforward, my priorities will be 1, 2, 3 because. An alternative would be a day in your life at Columbia Business School that will show you taking a role in your top priorities and basically showing the breakdown that Columbia is looking for. Don't ignore or forget the time allocation part of this question. I think it's there for a reason. It may be a little aggravating to fill out, but do take it seriously. I think what you think to realize here is that you need to know this program very well in order to convey what is most attractive to you. And again, what it shouldn't be, a generic response that basically spits back the website. Let's move on to essay 3. Please select and answer one of the following essay questions. A, please tell us what you feel most passionate about in life. Or B, if you were given a free day and could spend it anywhere in any way you choose, what would you do? Now, I would encourage you, unless you're one of the few people who are lucky enough where your job is your passion and you could do it 7 days a week, I would encourage you to show a different side of yourself to Columbia Business School. These 2 questions are looking to meet you outside the office. I would just choose the one that you're going to find easiest to write. And it could be something fun or interesting that would tell Columbia Business School you're really going to add a distinctive element to the class of 2020. And I would really try and have some fun with this question. Then the optional essay. Is there any further information that you wish to provide the admissions committee? If so, use the space to provide an explanation of any areas of concern in your academic record or your personal history. This does not need to be a formal essay. You may submit bullet points. Is there something you would like the school to know that you didn't have room for? It could be that you were, and I hope this isn't true, but you were hit by a car during your junior year and that's why your grades dropped suddenly then, or a different kind of challenge, or perhaps more information about an activity or hobby. In looking at the Columbia Business School essay questions, realize that they allow the admissions committee to see where you're headed, why you want to go to CBS and how it will help you achieve your goals, and also to meet you off the job. The rest of the application tells them what you've done in the past. Essays 1 and 2 tell them what you seek in the future, and essay 3 tells them what's important to you as a human being. They help the school get a holistic, comprehensive picture of you. Let's move on to the recommenders. Now, Columbia says if you've been working full-time for at least 6 months, one recommendation should be from your current supervisor. The second recommendation should be from either a former direct supervisor or from another professional associate senior to you who can share their insights on your candidacy. My 2 additional criteria. 1, ask if your recommenders can write a strong, positive letter recommendation for you. If there's any hesitation, for any reason, be it lack of time, or they don't quite have the opinion of you that they thought they did, move on, ask somebody else. The second of my criteria are they must know you well and be able to write from personal experience about your work. Don't ask a recommender who has a fancy title but barely knows you. Ask somebody who can comment from personal experience and comment positively about your work. Encourage your recommenders to write in specifics, to focus on leadership, initiative, teamwork, and impact, as well as some of the other values that you know that are important to Columbia and that you feel you demonstrated while working for that individual. 10 tips for recommenders on the screen. Also gives them examples and again encourages specifics. You can direct them to that URL if you're so inclined. The interview. The Columbia Business School interview is a personal conversation. It's not an intimidating or not intended to be an intimidating interview. It's usually with an alumnus. And they want to get to know you as a person. They want to see if you belong in their community. And they want to see if the alum thinks you're going to be a real addition to their network. So the alum provides a little bit different perspective on your candidacy, much like a recommender provides a different perspective on your candidacy. To prepare, I suggest you download either this free download, hold on a second, the top one, I can highlight it. That's this one. Then you can prepare on your own, or what I really recommend is that you do a mock interview there, and that will allow you to have a dress rehearsal. And you're a lot better off if we discover things that you can improve in your interview than if Columbia does and perhaps decides the person who didn't manifest those behaviors is a better candidate. So personalized mock interviews is also something that Accepted offers. A few tips I'm going to give you now. Before you go into your Columbia Business School interview, or as part of your preparation for it, review your Columbia application. Your interviewer is not going to have seen the entire application, but they will get your resume. And obviously, the things that you think are most important for Columbia to know are in your application. I would also suggest that you Google the interviewer ahead of time so that maybe you can find some commonalities with him or her and create just a human connection. Also, prepare thoughtful questions to ask. What was based on your interests as well as perhaps the alumnus's experiences. Be prepared to walk the alum through your resume as well as to respond to behavioral questions like, tell us about a time when you took some criticism, you had difficulty with a coworker, that kind of thing. All right, let's go back to your goal in submitting an application to Columbia. Show you belong at Columbia Business School. Now, we're going to have our little contest now, and you're going to have an opportunity to win the book I co-authored with Judy Gruen. In the question window, the first 3 to answer this question will get a copy of the book. At the very, all right, I blew that. We're not going to do that. We're going to have a different one. What is the first of my 4-part framework? Intellectual drive. Christopher, I'll take that. Demonstrate that you can do the work. Lori, good. All right, intellectual drive to succeed. Eileen, you got it. It'll be Kindle or paperback in the United States, Kindle only outside the United States. Rachel, did you get that? Those names? Again, it's Christopher. Let's see, where's it again? Christopher, Lori, and Eileen. Yes, okay, great. Now let's review all 4 of those 4 parts of the framework. 1, evidence that you can do the work. Present the academic credentials that show you can do the work and excel. And if you don't have the academic credentials, you're going to have to show it some other way, but you definitely have to show it. Have a goal that requires a Columbia MBA. Number 2. Number 3, show that you meet Columbia's criteria and share its values. And number 4, that you have an ability to contribute distinctively to class discussions and teamwork, the school's community, and ultimately make the school proud. So there are the 4 steps, right? The 4 parts of my framework. And I'm going to emphasize again that you need all 4 parts, and we're going to get more into that in a second. Final word of advice. Actually, not the final one, almost final. Getting there. The admissions committee readers are sharp, intelligent professionals. Don't try to trick, fake, or fool. The best presentation of you is an authentic reflection of your achievements and dreams, keeping in mind the 4 parts of the framework I presented this evening. The 4 things that will make Columbia want you. Now, in this webinar, I have given you the requirements of a successful Columbia application. I've also given the reason each and every element is necessary for success. What I can't give you is the how, or at least I can't give you with the specificity that I would like to give you the how, because you're each individuals, and what I've presented is general. Helping you to produce the authentic reflection of your dreams and achievements, that requires individual advising with an experienced, accepted consultant. We want to guide you in showing that you both belong at Columbia or whatever MBA program you're aiming for, and stand out in the applicant pool. We want to advise you in creating applications that accomplish everything we've discussed today. Here's what you get at Accepted. You get a customized approach that fits your needs. We're not one size fits all. If you only need a little bit of help, that's what you get. If you're starting from scratch and want comprehensive assistance, for example, with all 4 parts of this framework, that's what you get. We have flat rate options and hourly fee-based options. You get one dedicated advisor who becomes expert in your story and helping you present it. We've been helping clients get accepted to Columbia and other top MBA programs for over 20 years. Collectively, on our staff, we have former admissions directors, highly experienced consultants, published authors, people with 5, 10, 15, 20 years of experience in MBA admissions. And you get candor and objectivity in reviewing your application combined with all that experience. Now, some may say that Accepted seems expensive, and we're definitely not a cheap service because of the quality of our staff. But our fees are peanuts compared to the cost of an MBA, and they're also very reasonable when compared to the cost of rejection. Reapplication can easily cost a few $1,000s. One additional year of pre-MBA earnings can cost in the 5 figures in dollars. If you dislike your job, I hope that's not the case, but some of you do, and you may have to have 1 more year of it. I'll let you put a dollar figure on that. And then there's the potential that you could have gotten into a better program with lifelong higher earnings and network. I'll let you calculate the cost. We've many times had applicants, I can think of several, who were not aiming for top programs, and because of our encouragement, they applied at schools like Columbia, MIT, and other M7 elite MBA programs and got in, sometimes with scholarship money. They were completely underselling themselves, undervaluing their own qualifications. But enough from me. What do accepted clients say? Well, I'm going to deal with the long one on the right first. I'm very happy to tell you that I've been accepted to Columbia. Thanks so much for your help along the way. Your insight and careful critiquing of my essays truly did the trick. I think the best compliment I can give is a recommendation, and indeed, I had a friend contact me to ask for advice after I was accepted, and I let her know that you helped me. Thanks again. This was from a client who was from a very geeky, overrepresented group in the applicant pool. Or this other one, the one on the left, I wanted to thank you for all your help. I couldn't have done it without you. And that applicant was accepted to Columbia and Booth. I actually think that was the guy who worked with Esmeralda and had taken the advice of friends first time around. Here's what I would recommend you do after the Q&A, which we're going to get to in just a second. Visit accepted.com/MBA services, choose a service that's right for you, get the guidance you need, and then apply confidently and effectively. It's now September. We can still work on your Columbia applications for their January or early decision deadline, which is October 4th. Or we can help you get your application in early for a regular decision and merit fellowship deadline, which is January 5th. And the final deadline is much later in April. Contact us as soon as possible, and we'd be happy to help you from scratch or review and edit your essays. Our goal is to guide you so that you present all 4 parts of this critical framework discussed today and show that you both belong at Columbia and are a standout in the applicant pool. Take these steps to work with an experienced, accepted MBA admissions consultant, and we even have one who volunteered at one point on the Columbia Admissions Committee. Another person worked in administrative capacity in the Columbia Admissions Office. And take the path that the accepted clients I've quoted took. Now, I promised you a special offer. I discussed a special offer with you earlier. We're offering $250 off for MBA application packages. The coupon code is SAVE250. The URL is on the screen. You can also get to it from the URL that I gave you, the MBA/services URL. You can go there, look over the service. That's free. If you're considering it, talk to a consultant, see if it's best for you, and again, save $250 if you purchase it by September 14th. That's next week. Now for your questions, okay? Let's see what we have here. You've been a great audience. I really want to thank you for your participation, but let's see the questions now. Okay, Eileen asks if there's time for questions. There is. For Essay 2, I realize I'm going over. What do you think about tying being at the very center of business with past experiences to prove that you will indeed follow through on your words? You know, it's very hard for me to, again, talk about specifics in this format, that's forum, because that's where the consulting and advising really works better. But definitely you want to tie your past experience to what Columbia is looking for. I don't think it's so much talking about being at the very center of business, because that's, again, kind of getting back to that spam slide and not showing it. But if you can show, I think I really need to see the specifics there, okay? You have to show that you, in past experiences, you were at the center of business. You were at the center of something. You took responsibility. You showed leadership. You were on a team. You did well. You had impact. That's what's going to convince them that you're going to be able, that your past qualifies you for their school. In terms of Essay 2, it's not so much the phrase at the very center of business, it's how do you plan on allocating your time between academics, networking, and I've got the third one at the moment, but let's see, let's go back to it. And personal, academics, recruiting, and networking. What are your priorities? So I'm not sure it's a phrase being at the very center of business. What you need to do there, and it's not your past experience that they're asking about, it's how you intend to allocate your time and use the resources that Columbia Business School provides. Okay, thanks for the question. Let's see what else we have here. What advice do you have for reapplicants, and do you recommend that reapplicants include the 3 essays from this year, even if it's not required? That's a good question. I think the first thing that every reapplicant has to do is assess why they were rejected and then attempt to change what went wrong. So you can boil down the reasons for rejection to four categories. One, you weren't competitive. You didn't have the qualifications. You essentially didn't show fit. 2, you failed to present fit effectively. Maybe you had the work experience, but you talked in general terms. You didn't focus on results. And I'll actually show you an example of that in a minute. Or 3, you were a victim of the numbers. You're from a highly competitive profile. You did a fairly decent job on presenting your experience. You were competitive, but your particular group in the applicant profile and applicant pool is so competitive that they simply can't admit all qualified applicants, and you didn't make the cut. Or some combination. The fourth possibility is that some combination of those elements played a role in your rejection. The one thing I caution you against is assuming that number 3 is the sole reason for rejection, because that basically lets you off the hook. And it's a rather dangerous way to go, and it will prevent you from improving. If you think it's your qualifications, you need to improve your qualifications. If it's the GMAT, you need to raise your GMAT score. If it's your GPA, you need to take some classes. If it's work experience, lack of leadership, you need to change those things. If it's your presentation, well, then you need to improve your presentation. And if you feel that you really failed to present yourself well in your previous application, then it probably would be wise to include all 3 essays if that's an option that's open to you. Okay? I believe it is, but I would check on that. I didn't look that up in preparing for today. Roshan, hello Linda, thank you for the amazing presentation. My question is, I have 2 years of full-time work experience in real estate at the same company, postgraduate, 3 by the time I enter CBS. Is that good enough, or how else can I improve my work experience? Okay, You're welcome, Caitlin. It's very difficult for me to say that's good enough or not good enough, because there is the quantitative element of your work experience and the qualitative element of your work experience. 2 years or 3 years at matriculation, which is what those numbers reflected, is definitely on the low side. That means that you have to show that you accomplished in 3 years what many other people take 4 and 5 years to accomplish. So if you had major impact, if you had above average progression on the job, then your 3 years probably is enough. It probably is good enough. If the 3 years isn't good enough, or you did not have that above average progression, or you did not have significant and unusual impact in your work, then you might be better off waiting, or you can make the choice to try now and just see how it goes. If you're accepted, great. If not, you reapply, and time and age will take care of that. You'll have an additional year of work experience. Thanks for the question, Roshan. Very good. Let's get through another couple. I realize I've run over, but we do want to get to some more questions. One of the most common reasons you see for rejection is at Columbia. This is from Jeffrey. Well, it's pretty much what I outlined. It didn't have competitive, academic stats, didn't have competitive work experience, either qualitatively or quantitatively, didn't show fit in terms of the community, which is really important to Columbia, or the values, or didn't present yourself effectively. Those are the reasons. I don't have enough, I couldn't say which of those reasons is most common, but those are the main ones. Excellent question, thank you. Let's see what else we have here. Pratik says, thank you for a very informative session, Linda. You're most welcome. Thank you. Somebody else thanked me. You're welcome also. Will you guys also help for getting scholarship aid? We do help with the essays for scholarship aid, yes. We don't do like scholarship search and that kind of stuff though. And some of our clients have also said that just by virtue of the fact that their application was better, they felt that it helped them to get scholarships. And they felt that their investment in accepted services was a very, very profitable one. What recommendations do you have for applicants who are older than CBS's average? Well, again, if you're within that 3 to 7 year range, I wouldn't be really concerned about it. If you're outside that 3 to 7 year range, especially if you're significantly outside that range, let's say it's more like 8 to 10 years of work experience, then I have a couple of suggestions for you. We also have an article on the site. Maybe Rachel, you can post it for older, with advice for older applicants. Maybe you can post it in the chat window. First piece of advice is you have to explain why you need the MBA now. You've been working longer than most people who have an MBA. It's not why you didn't apply earlier, it's why you need it now. What do you want to accomplish that you cannot currently accomplish without it? So that's point one. And point two is you need to somehow make them believe that you're not relying on their career services office to get you an entry-level job, that you have either a job waiting for you back at your current firm, or that you have the connections to find your own job. The Career Services Office is geared towards people with 3 to 7 years of work experience. And if you have much more and are looking to kind of, resume your career at a higher level, then they're going to be concerned that perhaps they can't really help you. And again, they want to help their students succeed. So that concern has to be somehow addressed. All right, now Sarah asks, what if you are a career changer and your past work experience is hard to quantify? Sarah, can you give me an example by what you mean there? I'm having a little trouble with that one. I mean, like you were a teacher, so you taught 30 students a year and you can't really say, they went from grade 5 to grade 6 or something like that. then you'd have to, then if you can't quantify your impact, then you have to discuss it in qualitative terms. All right? Okay, yeah. Then you have to discuss your impact in more qualitative terms. If you got any teaching awards, though, to go with that example, then, meaningful teaching awards, I'm not talking about employee of the month stuff, then, especially if you're in a 12-member team and you got employee of the month once a year, it's not that impressive, but published in academic journals, sure, then that would show you as a thought leader. Okay, let's see. Thank you again. Okay. I'm getting nudged to finish up. How important do you think it is to visit Columbia prior to applying? Do you think it is okay to visit afterwards if accepted, assuming you have reached out to admissions and attended webinars? I mean, the value of visiting Columbia is that you get insight into the program. You're going to know more about it. You're going to be able to write more effectively about why you want to go there, how you're going to allocate your time, how it's going to help you achieve your goals. You're going to be able to show fit more effectively if you take advantage of what Columbia offers. Now, if that's not possible for you, either because of financial reasons, work reasons, geography, they're not going to hold it against you that you didn't visit, especially if you've attended webinars, you've gone to receptions, etc., if you've done your due diligence in other ways. So it's just a practical question. Can you get there? If you can't, make sure you get this information, or as much as possible of this information as you can in other ways. Okay, again, I want to thank you for coming, for your questions, your time, your attention, your answers. And now a final thought and story, and this really is final. The thought: there is a paradox inherent to acceptance at top business schools. You have to demonstrate that you fit in and that you stand out. By fitting in, I mean that you belong at the target school, in this case, Columbia Business School, in terms of your academics, your goals, your work experiences, and your values. That you're going to be a valued member of Columbia's community. And that's really part 1 to 3 of my framework. And it was in that paragraph I read at the very beginning of the webinar from Columbia, where Columbia says what it's looking for. And you also have to stand out. You need to stand out in a highly qualified, intensely competitive, and talented applicant pool. You need to show that you're going to contribute distinctively, that you're going to add a special something to class discussions and to your community. To get a little bit poetic, if you'll allow me, I'm far from a poet. The admissions committee are looking at their class like a mosaic, and each student has to be a distinctive tile or U in that mosaic. One more story. This one is from an accepted consultant. And here is his analysis of a client situation. Let's call him Raj. I helped Raj into Columbia and Sloan & Booth this season after he failed to get into Wharton Sloan & Booth last year. The situation was a very good example of why even excellent candidates need guidance to help them into top business school. His previous applications did a very poor job of presenting him to admissions committees. He didn't take advantage of his very international background. He didn't emphasize his leadership and career-related stories, and he chose his topics poorly from events long ago and from events of little interest to admissions committees. Pointing him in the right direction and guiding him down that path brought him multiple acceptances this year, even though little had changed in his candidacy from the previous year. So, to the member of the audience who asked about, how do you get accepted the second time around, the reapplication? Well, I would say come to Accepted and use our services, but you have to evaluate what went wrong and how you can improve. And if you don't want to have to do that, use our services the first time around. If you want a reliable guide on this journey, like Raj had, who will kindly give you insightful, trustworthy, and necessary feedback to help you get into your favorite schools and pursue your dream career, follow the steps on the screen, which are the steps taken by all the clients you've heard from or about. They sought Accepted's help, applied confidently and successfully. They're now pursuing their dreams. Follow their well-trodden path, take the steps on the screen as they did, and pursue yours too. care.